Absolutely. Totem Pole Nation, we are back. We are live. We are here with the Grappler. And we just heard on Dark Side of the Ring that they're going to have a show on the Junkyard Dog. This is one of my favorite books right here, Memoirs of a Masked Madman. Can you tell me about the crazy day that you had with the Junkyard Dog, my brother?
Brother, one thing about Junkyard Dog, like the people don't understand, he wasn't. I mean, they might know, a lot of people might know, but he was a great athlete. But the one thing, he used to come to the ring and he had that dog collar around his neck, and he had that big old chain. He'd come to the ring, he'd playing that song, Another One Bites the Dust, you know. So all the people would start saying, ain't nobody beat that dog. Ain't that, nobody beat that dog. Ain't that, like that. Like they do at the Saints game. You know,
yeah.
They do. Nobody said they beat that dog and all that stuff. And they used to do that with dog before the Saints ever started doing it. You know?
Yes, sir. That's where that originated. That's where that originated from. I try to tell people that all the time. Everybody thinks that the Who Dat chant came from there. The Who Dey chant in Cincinnati came from there. But neither one of those teams were doing it back when the Junkyard Dog originated that. And we're breaking news right here with that.
Who they say gonna beat that dog? Who that? I remember hearing it a million times. And this one particular time I want to tell you about, and the folks about, is I was in New Orleans wrestling the Junkyard Dog. And so I'm standing out there. So I get to the ring first. I'm standing in the ring, and so they hit the Dog's music, you know. Now, back in those days, the crowds were pretty rough, pretty rugged, you know. And so they would have policemen. I mean, real policemen in New Orleans. They weren't just they had the real policemen there because the crowd was really rough. And so they would take you through these one double doors. You know, and then there's two sets of double doors, and then gets out to right where ringside is, and the cop would take you all the way to ringside. If you're like a burly guy like I was, and you get in the ring, and then they would go back to the back and watch a match or whatever. And so I'm in the ring, and they hit the Dog's music, and the people are chanting, "Who that say gonna beat that dog?" Here he comes, that big old chain swinging around like that. And so I said, I told the referee. Then a guy named Jack Howell, I said, "Jack, come here." I said, "Listen," I said, "I want you to go and slide out on the floor and tell Dog we're going to get this match started right." I said, when he crosses the ropes, I'm going to take that chain and wear him out. Let's get this going. And so he goes out there, and I see him tell Dog, and Dog swinging that chain, and Dog comes around the corner. I see him give me a little wink. He got the message, right? I said, okay, he's with it. So here he comes. He rolls up on the apron. He starts through the ropes, and I jump in him. I start beating the hell out of him. I get him in the ring, and I'm choking him with that chain, and I got him down. And I look up in the crowd, in the crowd, everybody starts in front of me. They all start diving under their seats. Like floor everywhere diving. And they're not watching what we're doing. And so I go, usually when that would happen, it'd be like a fist fight would break out in the crowd. Anytime a fist fight would break out, the crowd would start watching that. And then after the fight's over, they go back to watching a wrestling match. So we were taught in the ring, you might as well stop doing, anything exciting because nobody's watching you. So we just get a hold on the guy. So I got a hold on Junkyard Dog, said, might as well stop. We got a fight in the crowd. And so I just kind of settled everything down, and everybody finally got it and started getting in their seats and everything, started watching the match, and we continued the match, and we had a good match that day, hell of a match. And so when I come back after the match, when I got back in the back going toward the dressing room, this one police officer calls me aside and says, "Hey, Grappler, you need to go over and take that officer right there. He just saved your life." So what are you talking about? He goes, "Go ask him." And I went over there, and he goes, "Hey, usually when I walk you up to ringside, I'll come on back to the back to watch the rest of the match." But he goes, "I was really interested to see how this was going to start." So I stood there, thank God. He said, "When you jumped the dog with that chain," he said, "the guy ringside had a big old Rough Rider coat on, an override coat on. He opened it up, pulled out a 357 Magnum." He said, "I just happened to see him. I caught his arm, and the other police officer got him. We took the gun away from him. Brother, he was so close to you. Believe me, he blew a hole in you. You could have stuck your arm through with that 350. You'd have been a dead man." I said, "You're kidding." He goes, "No." I said, "Thank you so much." But can you believe that? That's how much they love the Junkyard Dog, brother. They keep.
Grappler. I mean, as a heel, as a guy that's pretty much been a lifetime heel, what was going through your mind after the fact, after things kind of died down, that a guy would come there and pull a gun and try to shoot you? Is that just the ultimate heel move, or what?
Well, brother, it's the thing is, it was the kind of situation that went on all the time. I remember one time in Lake Charles, I pulled up and I was starting to make some money at a nice Chevrolet Silverado pickup I just bought, and I had Krager mags on it. It looked real good, and pull up, and the police officers there too in Lake Charles, and they go, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're going to park that back here? It's going to go all to hell." So they took me around to the police station to give me a ride back. That's how bad it was. I mean, you're always getting in fights, always something back then. If you're a good heel, you were over, and the people believed in you, you better be ready. It's a fight for your life.
You definitely had the advantage, I believe, because you were kind of hidden away from most people. So I think you definitely took advantage of that, at least.
That did help a lot out in the regular public because I wore the mask. Nobody knew what I looked like, so that got me out of a lot of trouble some of the other guys had to put up with. But every time I'd go to that arena, it was on. All trying to leave.
Yeah, that's the thing with your promos. I had recently showed Coach Taylor, who's a regular here on Totem Pole Nation. I showed him one of your videos. We were watching the clips the other day, and he said that your promos, the first thing he thought of was kind of a Road Warrior Animal, because you kind of had that build, but the voice that you came with and the fire and the brimstone that you brought to it. And I told him, I said, you know what? I'm sure Road Warrior Animal probably watched a lot of promos from the Grappler, because the one we watched was you and Roddy Piper in Portland. And I mean, you were lighting him up, and it was just something else.
I got you. I don't know if he imitated what I was doing or not. We got a lot of. I copied a lot of different guys too. One of my favorite guys is Harley Race. I liked his promos. He was down. He'd say, "Hey, if I have to, I'll stick my finger in your eyeball and I'll pull it out." And he'd get around down pretty nitty gritty too. But yeah, he was. Animal did some good interviews himself. He did some good ones too. But yeah.
As far as that Junkyard Dog rivalry. How did that all come together? Because to me, it seemed like you were kind of, you're on the fence. You might go join, your dad work-wise. And Junkyard Dog he was so over, and he looked like he might be projected, to move up. And then I believe it was Mr. Wonderful that kind of tied you guys all in together. Is that right?
Well, what happened was I was had been wrestling about 4 years, and I hadn't got a break yet, a major break. So, and within 4 years, if you're a good athlete, you should have got a break in pro wrestling now, if you had what it took. That's what the story was for everybody, And so it's about 4. It's getting close to 4, and so I hadn't got a break. Got a couple of places that told me they'd give me a break, but didn't work out. And so I just, I told my dad, he had a construction company, a couple of crews going at the time. He said, "Come on back. I'll you can take over this whenever I retire, but until then, you can work with me." And so that's what I had planned to do. And so what I done was I went back to North Carolina. I was going to give it one more run for 8 months, finish that up, and from there I was coming home. And that's where I got the call. I was coming back from the gym. I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and a guy named Gene Lewis. I don't know if you ever heard of him, another wrestler. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. He just happened to have his door open in his room. He seen me coming by. He goes, "Lenny, hey, this guy wants to talk to you." And it was Buck Robley. He's a booker in Louisiana for Watts. I said, "Okay." And I talked to him. He said, "Hey, we need a top heel, a wrestling heel. And I heard you wrestle with a mask." I said, yeah, I wrestle with a mask, which I had done before in Atlanta just a little bit as a job guy. But I was looking for this type of, this is a top spot He said, you think you can handle it? I said, no, I can handle it. He goes, what do you call yourself? And I said, and me and Don Cornoodle, another wrestler, had just been talking about wearing a mask going down the road a couple nights before. And Don Cornoodle says, you know, if I wear a mask, because he was the Greco-Roman type wrestler, you know, in amateurs, he goes, I call myself the Grappler, because the Grappler means wrestler in Greek or something, you know. I guess,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That stuck in my head. And when he asked me, what do you call yourself? I said, I call myself the Grappler.
So, hey, it's a great idea unless you use it, right? It's a great idea unless you use it. You used it.
Don Cornoodle said I owe him residuals for years and years.
Heck yeah, man. That is awesome. So you got to go to was it the Watts territory then?
Well, it was Watts' territory, yeah. And so I went there, and he hadn't decided if he was going to use me as a top four yet. He was checking me out. And we had a match in Shreveport. I was wrestling Paul Orndorff in Shreveport. And I noticed that Watts flew in his private plane, you know, because I seen him there, and I knew he didn't just drive in. And he was over on the other side. Well, back then, if they caught you talking to each other before the matches, you could get fired in a heartbeat. It was like kayfabe all the way. Mm-hmm. So Orndorff snuck over, and our gentleman said, hey, Lenny, he goes, Grappler, he goes, look, he goes, you better come on tonight because Watts is here watching, and he told me he's going to make his decision where he's going to use you or not on top tonight. And so I went out there with Paul, and we went 30 minutes to a draw, and he gave me the chance after that. Watts called me 2 days later and said, hey, I want you to come up with a good finish. You're working at DiBiase. We're putting the North American title on you, and we're going to give you the push. And I said, brother, thank you. And we went from there. That's how the Grappler got his first break.
Wow, you know? What a game changer that was. And yeah, so many guys got taken, you know, from that Mid-South and went directly up to the WWF, you know, Orndorff. Who else was in that it was DiBiase, Dog.
DiBiase, Dog, Junkyard Dog, Jake the Snake Roberts, just tons of guys from out of there. You know?
Oh, speaking of Jake the Snake Roberts, I've had so many of my close friends, you know, they love that finisher, you know, yeah. the DDT. It's probably one of the most devastating moves ever. You were one of the inventors with that. Is there any way, would you mind telling us that story? Because that is just, it's epic.
No problem. Yeah, that all happened. See, like I was telling you, Watts wanted me as a wrestling heel. Okay, a wrestler, because he had Junkyard Dog and he had the Freebirds and he had Brody and he had Abdul the Butcher and all these guys coming in and out. You call them guys furniture movers. They go out there and go 10 minutes, and they bleed and move the furniture all over the building and fight all over the place, right? But Bill Watts believed in this, which I do too. It says that he told me himself, he goes, hey, here's why you're here. It says at the top of the marquee at my wrestling match, professional wrestling. You're here to wrestle, so give them a damn wrestling match every night. Told me don't go less than 30 minutes. If you do, I'll fire your ass. And so 30 minutes in the heat down south, 30, 45, whatever he's doing every night. I was there 3 months, I lost 20 pounds, you know. But everybody would see my name wrestling them on the card. They go, oh, my God, I got the Grappler. We got to go 30 minutes tonight or 20 minutes. You know, and so this particular night, we were in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I had Jake the Snake.